Hello, I'm Candace Goodman, and this is the first edition of the Good News Report. The Good News Report exists because the world is not short on information, but it is short on orientation. Every day we are surrounded by headlines, alerts, opinions, and reactions, yet very little of it helps us understand why systems behave the way they do, or how today connects to yesterday and tomorrow. This report is not here to tell you what to think. It is here to help you see how systems move, why outcomes repeat, and where today's events actually sit in the larger picture. The Good News Report is produced inside the Goods virtual world, a platform built to preserve context, knowledge, and clarity without distortion, panic, or incentive-driven noise. What you are watching is not a traditional news broadcast. It is a thinking environment designed to slow information down long enough for it to make sense. The Good News Report will be released every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Let's begin with this week. This week, the Internal Revenue Service urged Americans to take what it called one of the most important steps before tax season officially opens, preparing early and accessing online accounts. At first glance, this sounds like a simple reminder. In reality, it reveals how the enforcement system actually works. The IRS needs tax returns processed cleanly because errors, delays, and disputes cost money and overwhelm an agency with limited staff and aging systems. Between 2010 and 2020, the IRS lost roughly 20% of its workforce, while the number of tax returns increased. Even with new funding approved in recent years, rebuilding enforcement capacity takes time. What the system is doing is prioritizing automation. A clean electronic return costs only a few dollars to process. A complex audit of a high-income individual or business can cost $50,000 to $100,000 and take years to resolve. As a result, enforcement concentrates where it is cheapest and fastest. Taxpayers earning under roughly $25,000 to $50,000, especially those claiming refundable credits, face higher audit and penalty exposure because cases are correspondence-based, inexpensive, and rarely contested. This is not about intent, it is about cost. The practical takeaway is not fear, it is preparation. Understanding how enforcement works allows people to avoid penalties that compound quietly at 5 to 8% per year. This is why legibility matters. When people see how systems actually operate, mistakes stop feeling personal and start becoming preventable. Next, retail sales jumped despite widespread reports of shopper anxiety, with companies like Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Best Buy posting strong results. Retailers need inventory to move quickly. Unsold goods tie up cash and damage quarterly earnings. Over time, consumers were trained to fear waiting through urgency language like limited time, while buy now, pay later tools reduce the emotional friction of spending. When anxiety rises, about 10 to 20% more shoppers buy immediately. This creates a short-term surge in sales. After that surge fades, prices quietly fall 3 to 8% within 2 to 4 weeks to restart demand. The headline says, "Consumers are resilient." The system says, "Urgency works." For households, the lesson is patience. For investors, the signal comes after the rush, when margins compress and pricing power weakens. The pattern is not new. What is new is how quickly it repeats. In banking news, Bank of America and Wells Fargo reported strong earnings, alongside Citi, PNC, Truist, and Fifth Third. Banks make money by lending, and strong earnings give them confidence to expand credit. After years of tightening standards, growth phases quietly return. During these periods, approval odds for borrowers with credit scores between 600 and 680 improve by roughly 5 to 10%, especially at mid-sized banks seeking volume. The headline focuses on profits. The system reveals a lending cycle. Access to credit expands before risk becomes visible. Tightening follows later. For individuals, the opportunity lies in applying when credit is not urgently needed. For investors, lending growth matters more than earnings headlines. Mortgage demand also jumped this week, rising nearly 29% as rates dipped slightly. A drop from 6.25% to 6.17% saves about $15 to $20 per month on a $400,000 loan. At the same time, Bidding pressure raises home prices 1 to 3%, adding $4,000 to $12,000 up front. Emotion moves housing faster than math. The headline celebrates buyers returning. The system shows excitement restarting movement. For buyers, focusing on price matters more than chasing rates. For professionals, demand spikes often come right before prices stall. In technology news, Meta announced job cuts as metaverse spending slowed. Meta invested tens of billions of dollars into virtual reality before there was a shared public understanding of how VR creates everyday economic value beyond entertainment. When demand pathways are unclear, markets lose patience. Layoffs of 5 to 15% reduce expenses quickly and stabilize earnings reports, even while long-term investment continues quietly. The headline says, VR is too early. The system says, demand clarity matters. This is where the goods virtual world enters with purpose. Jobs disappear when technology advances faster than understanding. The goods virtual world uses VR not for spectacle, but for orientation, learning, and real-world system navigation. When people understand how technology fits into daily life, adoption becomes stable, revenue becomes predictable, and companies are no longer forced to cut workers to buy time. Legibility preserves employment. Across media, Netflix and Warner Bros. Discovery continue to cut content and consolidate operations. Streaming costs rose faster than subscriptions. Mergers reduce content spending by 20 to 40%, while subscription prices rise gradually. Small monthly charges feel harmless, even when they compound into thousands over time. The headline focuses on content. The system focuses on attention and cost structure. For households, rotating subscriptions matters. For investors, recurring revenue discipline outlasts growth narratives. Finally, artificial intelligence investment surged again, led by Nvidia. AI spending continues to grow 20 to 30% annually, while roles consolidate across industries. Efficiency is rewarded immediately. Retraining arrives later. This does not mean work disappears. It means value shifts. Roles tied to repetition shrink. Roles tied to judgment, synthesis, and trust grow. People who understand systems guide tools. People who do not are replaced by them. When these stories are viewed together, they are not chaotic. They are coherent. Technology accelerates. Institutions lag. People absorb the friction. Markets signal confidence. Households feel pressure. Governments manage constraints. Media amplifies emotion. Understanding struggles to keep pace. This is not a failure of intelligence. It is a failure of structure. The Good News Report exists to restore structure. Each week, we will return to these systems, track how they evolve, and place new events where they belong. We will revisit ideas instead of abandoning them. We will name uncertainty without dramatizing it. We will treat complexity as something to navigate, not something to fear. This is the first edition of the Good News Report. New editions will be released every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for being here.